Hello, I'm here to promote toxic art habits because I want new markers. But these children's alcohol markers are in the way. What am I gonna do? Donate them to children and nurture their creativity? Better idea, I'll use these markers up until they're dry so I'll have an excuse to buy more. This is a speedrun towards creative burnout that I'm calling the Marker Marathon. There are 36 colors in this set and I've used them for a few years already for coloring in my sketchbook. Particularly the earthy colors as I doodled environments with them. They all still look deceptively juicy from the swatch page, although the browns and grays are definitely on their way out. As a warm-up, I drew these townhouses. Their foundations are these blocky shapes that I could mindlessly fill in. I had to use the purples and blues more since they were the least used, and their color combo gave the townhouses an evening vibe. Then from these blocky shapes, I could add in smaller details like the windows. I used a white paint marker for the window frames to introduce some contrast. This is a Staedtler Paint marker, which dries too soon, so I don't recommend it unless it's for writing or hand lettering, or doodling like this. On the other half of this page, I drew some houses inspired by those historical stone buildings in Yemen. They look like blocks stacked on top of each other with these roof accents that look like cat ears. Reference photos of these have been saved in my Pinterest for a while. This marathon was an opportune time to dig deep in my boards for inspiration that I've set aside. It's their time. They spared me from burning out by continuously feeding me with ideas. It was fun to dive back into my reference collection and ask myself why I saved those images in the first place. This orange brick house, for example, I was charmed by the colors and proportions back then. Doodling these houses exercises some muscle memory, familiarizing myself with the possible details I could remix for future house designs. Another photo I found quirky was of some derelict cars in a forest. They remind me of insect huts, so as a bit of wordplay, I drew the shell of a Volkswagen Beetle surrounded by grass and fern. There's still some space at the side, so I drew a clump of trees as filler with unusual colors: pink, purple, turquoise. These are tiny rock shapes with orange for the grass. There's 4 of them to play with shape languages in preparation for the next illustration. One of my self-imposed rules was no pencils allowed. That doesn't mean I can't sketch though. I was feeling ambitious with this little lighthouse island. There are overlapping objects like the dock and the house. It helped to visualize those overlaps with a thumbnail that was sketched with markers. A lighthouse was on my list of night scenes since night scenes will ask for more purple ink. The inks in these markers are saturated to levels meant to appeal to kids. There are a few pastel colors, and with a count of 36 pens, these limitations challenge me to find appealing color combinations, and draw with styles leaning towards cartoony and whimsical. This is a page of underwater elements like corals and sea plants. There's no composition to it, they're just free-floating objects. The theme is enough to keep this whole page cohesive, and there's a fun factor in the unusual shapes and patterns. When I wanted to fill the page sooner though, I drew some tentacles and a jellyfish. Squiggly lines take up space so effortlessly. Smaller creatures like starfish and sand dollars can fill up the space in between. Continuing with the underwater theme, this submarine was a natural follow-up. It's shaped like an anglerfish in an attempt to blend in with deep-sea fauna. Ideally though, it shouldn't be emitting this much light or else it'll just scare other creatures or attract attention. It's venturing through a field of seaweed for an easy background and midground because they'll be swallowed up by the purpleness of the seawater anyway. Below that is a pink and magenta desert dotted with spiky and roundy shrubs. At this point, I wasn't sure about drawing more landscapes for this marathon. They needed more effort to separate the foreground from the background. When I wanted to spit these doodles out, then move on to the next page. Auroras, those lights in the sky, usually appear on the north or south poles. I added one here for an extra eerie atmosphere. Maybe it's heralding an eldritch god. The pinkness of this environment reminded me of the game No Man's Sky. I wanted to refer to that game some more, but since I was tired of landscapes, I drew standalone background elements next. The bottom row still looks like ordinary trees, but they're in unusual colors. Trees don't have blue leaves. It only got wilder for that tree on the upper right. It's purple with finger-like leaves. And the grass around it is wormy. Planet doodles would be a natural progression of the space/alien theme. They're easy to draw too since they're simply spheroids of various sizes, some of them with rings. All the details they need are these swirly stripes made of 2 or 3 colors. I filled the background in with the black marker, which used up a lot of ink. That ink payout is uneven. This gold paint pen for the stars was from Miniso. It's a surprisingly opaque marker that has lasted a few years with rare usage. I could still squeeze some life out of the gray markers, not enough to use for filling, but enough for undersketches to plan out these retro toy robots. They're composed of basic blocks and limbs with wrenches for hands. Very non-threatening shapes. They have no intention to take over the human race. But if they did, it would be because we didn't take them seriously enough to notice they've been suffocating us with poison gas. When all the humans are dead, the robots will upgrade themselves with cooler designs. To conceptualize these, I laid down a major shape first before I considered how the robot could move around. Does it walk on tripod legs, or float, or have humanoid limbs? Then the small details could be cameras for eyes or screen faces. Then techie lines to divide the big shapes. I've actually been drawing sci-fi stuff more often for work. It's safe for me to say now that I've been a prop designer for an Arabic cartoon called Mansour, Age of AI. I'm not privy to a lot of details about its airing, just that it'll be shown in Canada sometime this year. So if you're in Canada, keep an eye out for it. The trailer's out in YouTube if you wanna see. I should link it in my community tab sometime as a proper announcement. Back to simplicity and even more video game inspiration. These are Minecraft blocks if I were to design a resource pack. I wasn't into realistic shaders or HD resource packs. I preferred the packs from Sphax or Jollycraft. This game is made of cubes, so I lean into the flatness with 2D cartoon-style textures. I haven't revisited Minecraft in years though, so I'm not familiar with all the new rocks and wood color, but the blocks I did draw are pretty common. There are a few soil variants, including mycelium, gravel, the different forms of normal stone, blocks from the nether, furniture, and liquid effects. If I was still into Minecraft, I'd like to make a resource pack out of these textures. My favorite activities in that game were building and playing with tech-themed mod packs. I used to draw my houses and factories, then spent even more time trying to build them in survival mode. Although I couldn't keep up with Minecraft anymore, survival crafting is one of my favorite genres now. All these earthiness reminded me, however, that my browns and grays are on their last legs, when I should be using reds, blues, and purples as dominant colors. To make up for it, my next prompts are animals that share the same color groups. The first one are red to orange animals. I would have filled this page with only red pandas, but diversity is more fun. Other red animals are that red cardinal bird, a poisonous frog, and a fox. Squeezed in some branches and leaves between them as color accents and to match the forest theme. The next group are blue beetles because insects have enough shape variations among them to inspire a whole page. Pink and magenta have been a good accent color, so I surrounded the insects with leaves in those colors. As for a purple animal, I drew this purple snake, which I believe isn't really a color snakes exist in. I simply wanted to fill a huge area with purple, but I didn't want another nighttime landscape. Recalling the seaweed and tentacles from the sea theme pages, squiggly lines take up space so effortlessly. Snakes are thick, squiggly lines. Coil them around in an interesting way, and I've got myself a composition that can take up most of the page. This was such a fun and effective idea that I explored a few times more, varying the color schemes in between, like green with gold, and changing background elements. I even gave them silly angular faces. They have intimidating expressions, at least trying to be, but the big eyes and flat angular style puts them a step away from scary. I took a break from snakes by drawing this iron giant stuck or lost in the middle of a forest. That furnace on its chest and the mouth makes it more steampunk than the iron giant from the movie. Could also mean it's ready to burn the trees down, but the big thing's just confused. It needs to find a town and ask for directions. The sky color makes it look more ominous, but nothing to panic about. To give this a sense of scale, I drew some basic McDonald's-shaped birds flying around. I returned to drawing snakes, but this time they're huge and part of an environment. Like this giant sea snake is coiled towards the foreground and it's surrounded by stalagmites. Initially, it was supposed to be inside a cave. I would have drawn some ceiling and stalactites in the background. A black sky was much simpler and I could bust out the gold marker for stars again. The forest snake is winding around some trees. It's on the prowl for prey. This one's my favorite with how I integrated it to the background. This also looks like the friendliest among my snakes because it has round qualities instead of sharp. The spines are rounded, it doesn't have its fangs out, and those pupils are thick rather than slitted. Meanwhile, the sky snake is undeniably massive compared to the mountains it's weaving through. Its spines are like boat sails or flags, but they don't act like wings. Those things generate the winds while the sky snake flies around with magic as a wind god. A cockatrice is a chicken with a snake for a tail, or is it a snake with a chicken for a tail? If you read Dungeon Meshi or Delicious in Dungeon, you'd know it's the latter. Oh, and if you notice the background changed, I found this vinyl sticker in Daiso. It's meant to be a floor tile sticker, but it was big enough for my film setup. From cockatrice to dragon, I'm on a mythological creature phase. This one's based on the Rathalos from the Monster Hunter games. The proportions and head aren't exact, but the chunky tail end is a giveaway. In Monster Hunter, that thing carries poison, so players have to watch out for tail swipe moves and chop that thing off sooner. The first sketch for this page was a dragon attacking a tower, but it looked awkward. The dragon looked like it was humping the tower. I drew this generic chonky dragon to cover most of the sketch underneath. And then an easy round, here's a skeleton floating in ectoplasm. My green and turquoise markers were struggling at this point. They weren't completely dry, they still had ink in them. I couldn't take them out of the game yet, but that definitely means I can't use them to fill in big shapes that stretch across the page. The black was still doing well though, so I drew the X-ray of a snake. Its nature elements are thorns to echo that dangerous and death theme. Despite knowing this blue marker is drying out, I used it for the main color of this raptor-like dinosaur. It's another Monster Hunter creature called Velociprey, one of the early game hunts. Just one more creature illustration before I gave up on that theme for this marathon. I wasn't confident with my marker's ink levels. I had to scale down the ideas, but I could still fill up a page with patterns. I arranged these flamingos like they were on some gaudy wallpaper at a cheap beach resort. They're surrounded by watermelons and palm leaves for the summer vibes. Here's my artistic way of checking in on my marker's ink levels. Not the best way though, because for small rectangles like these, the marker seemed able to provide ink consistently. It's not showing how the flow of ink from barrel to tip had been slowing down. It is, however, a quick, brainless way to cover the page with every color. My next ideas were more patterns and abstract art. I didn't feel like drawing creatures or environments anymore with my marker's ink levels. It also felt like I'm on the home stretch, so I needed more effortless illustrations. More ideas that don't require sketching because I'm feeling impatient. Could these markers all dry up already? I had been keeping track of the marker's ink payout by marking the barrels with an X. Half an X or a slash means I can't color properly with them anymore. The ink payout will be inconsistent and I won't have a nice clean shape. A full X means dry. I switched to marking them with a line across the barrel because sometimes I can't see the X marks at a glance. Luckily, if I arrange simple shapes to fill up a page, I can still call that art. Just letting that stream of consciousness flow. There's still a level of decision making on the layout, composition, and color scheme. This let me come up with color combos I didn't think about using before when I had a concrete idea in mind. The shapes are reasonably sized, so the dryness won't ruin the quality, but even if they look uneven, it's abstract art anyway. I wish I could be more spontaneous like this more often. I've only learned about stream of consciousness exercises recently. Before that, it's always been concrete stuff like gesture drawings, perspective, and technical studies. Feels like I boxed myself in when I decided to focus on visual development as my specialty. Even my non-portfolio illustrations feel like they have to be presentable to broadcast what kind of artist I am. I forgot that I'm allowed to draw random shapes with no narrative needed. And it doesn't have to align to what kind of artist I market myself as. These evil towers are inspired by the cities in Samurai Jack. I gotta mention Samurai Jack once in a while on my videos. The blue and green markers still had enough juice in them, so my last ideas should be dominantly blue. I know I said no more environments, but trees are my comfort zone. Similar to my abstract ideas, it's also effortless to doodle trees. They're a clump of triangle or round shapes, veined with branches and a trunk. Dot them with leaves and I've got some horticultural lollipops. This tree follows some of the visual language that I learned from the abstract pages. Its unique feature is that each clump has a different leaf texture. Would you prefer hairy leaves or stubby leaves? When I gave up on the greens, I had a couple of dark blues left. I was willing to call this marathon finished once these blues start sputtering. I defaulted to abstract again as I didn't know what else to draw. The color still reminds me of underwater themes, so have some seaweed. Here are some random lines while I was thinking of what else to draw. This dolphin doodle looked amateurish. It's not a good composition and I didn't want to end there, so my last illustration was one more blue environment. If you made it this far, hope you enjoyed this video. Although all the markers aren't bone dry, I can't get satisfying ink payouts from them anymore. I didn't see the point in continuing to draw with these markers if I couldn't enjoy using them. I could still say I didn't give up when they still had ink to offer. So that's the last page. I'll just slowly flip back to the start. The marathon challenged me to work with the markers I had left, and I came up with a lot of quick illustrations because of it. A lot of them are wonky, and I'd be lying if I say I wasn't after perfection. Still wanted my doodles to look good, comprehensible at least. When some pages didn't turn out well, I had to shrug and move on. A new set of markers were on the line. That's the key with these challenges. Material reward. It's a good motivator. Markers used to be rare and considered as a heavy purchase. I'm glad there are more choices for brands these days. Cheap sets like this encourage me to be more experimental. If I could get through this set, I'm ready to upgrade to a better brand. I already have Copic markers which I've been buying one by one. But I'm after a set for sketching again, especially ones that don't yellow after a few weeks. These ones do. They're horrible for archiving, so that's a quality to be aware of when choosing dirt cheap brands. You could say the illustrations are their own rewards too. I can revisit these sketches and polish them in the future. The abstract stuff can become canvas paintings. The snake illustrations especially could be redrawn digitally so I can make prints. The rest I'll just consider as drawing exercises or visual references like the environment stuff. And that's my marker marathon. Like and subscribe for more art videos. Thanks for watching and bye-bye.